The second Turkish president, Mustafa İsmet Inonu, 1923 to 1938. Part 1. Mustafa İsmet Inonu, the 24th of September 1884 to the 25th of December 1973, was a Turkish army officer and statesman who served as the second president of Turkey from the 11th of November 1938 to the 22nd of May 1950, and as its prime minister 3 times, from 1923 to 1924, 1925 to 1937, and 1961 to 1965. Inonu is acknowledged by many as Mustafa Kemal Ataturk's right-hand man, with their friendship going back to the Caucasus Campaign. In the Greco-Turkish War of 1919 to 1922, he served as the first chief of the General Staff from 1922 to 1924 for the regular Turkish army, during which he commanded forces during the First and Second Battles of Inonu. Ataturk bestowed İsmet with the surname Inonu, the site of the battles, when the 1934 surname law was adopted. He was also chief negotiator in the Mudanya and Lausanne conferences for the Ankara government, successfully negotiating away the Treaty of Sèvres for the Treaty of Lausanne. As his prime minister for most of his presidency, Inonu executed many of Ataturk's modernizing and nationalist reforms. Inonu gave the orders to carry out the Zilan massacre. Inonu succeeded Ataturk as president of Turkey after his death in 1938 and was granted the official title of Milli Sef National Chief by the parliament. As president and chairman of the Republican People's Party (CHP), Inonu initially continued Turkey's one-party state. Kemalist-style programs continued to make great strides in education by supporting projects such as village institutes. His governments implemented notably heavy statist economic policies. The Hatay state was annexed in 1939, and Turkey was able to maintain an armed neutrality during World War II, joining the Allied powers only 3 months before the end of the European theater. The Turkish Straits crisis prompted Inonu to build closer ties with the Western powers, with the country eventually joining NATO in 1952, though by then he was no longer president. Factionalism between statists and liberals in the CHP led to the creation of the Democrat Party in 1946. Inonu held the first multi-party elections in the republic's history that year, beginning Turkey's multi-party period. 1950 saw a peaceful transfer of power to the Democrats when the CHP suffered defeat in the elections. For 10 years, Inonu served as the leader of the opposition before returning to power as prime minister following the 1961 election, held after the 1960 coup d'état. The 1960s saw Inonu reinvent the CHP as a political party, which was left of center as a new party cadre led by Bülent Ecevit became more influential. Inonu remained leader of the CHP until 1972, when he was defeated by Ecevit in a leadership contest. He died on December 25, 1973, of a heart attack, at the age of 89. He is interred opposite to Ataturk's mausoleum at Anıtkabir in Ankara. İsmet Inonu, born Mustafa İsmet, was born in 1884 in Smyrna, Izmir, in the Aydın Vilayet to Hacı Reşit and Savriye, later Savriye Temeli. Hacı Reşit was retired after serving as director of the First Examinant Department of the Legal Affairs Bureau of the War Ministry Harbiye Nezareti Mahekmat Dairesi Birinci Mumayizlici. A member of the Karumolu family of Bitlis, Inonu's father was born in Malatya. According to its members studying the ancestral background of the family, Karumoglis were of Turkish origin, while secondary sources refer to the family as of Kurdish descent. His mother was the daughter of Mudaris Hasan Efendi, who belonged to the Ulema and was a member of the Turkish family of Razgrad, present-day Bulgaria. In 1933 he visited Razgrad since the city's Turkish cemetery was attacked. İsmet was the family's second child. He had 3 brothers, including the family's first child, Ahmet Midhat, 2 younger brothers, Hasan Riza and Hayri Temeli, as well as a sister Seniha Otakan. Due to his father's assignments, the family moved from one city to another. Inonu completed his primary education in Sivas and graduated from Sivas Military Junior High School Sivas Askeri Rustayasi in 1894. He then studied at the Sivas School for Civil Servants Sivas Mulkiye İdadisi for a year. He graduated from the Imperial School of Military Engineering in 1904 as a lieutenant gunnery officer and entered the military academy to graduate as a first-rank staff captain on the 26th of September 1906. Inonu started his duty in the 2nd Army based in Adrianople, Edirne on the 2nd of October 1906, in the 3rd Battery Command of the 8th Field Artillery Regiment. As part of his platoon officer staff internship, he gave lessons in military strategy and artillery. Captain İsmet was also part of the Ottoman Bulgarian commissions. Through Ali Fethi Okur, he briefly joined the Committee of Union and Progress in 1907, which wished to overthrow Sultan Abdul Hamid II. During the 31st of March incident, he was on the staff of the 2nd Cavalry Division, which was mobilized to join the Action Army and marched on Constantinople, Istanbul to depose Abdul Hamid II. Returning to Adrianople following the suppression of the mutiny, Inonu left the committee in the summer of 1909. He won his first military victory by suppressing Imam Yahya Muhammad Hamadan's revolt in Yemen. İsmet eventually became chief of staff of the force sent to suppress the rebellion and personally negotiated with Imam Yahya in Kafat al-Uzr to bring Yemen back into the empire. For this, he was promoted to the rank of major. He returned to Constantinople in March 1913 to defend the capital from Bulgarian attack during the First Balkan War. Inonu was part of the Turkish delegation that negotiated the Treaty of Constantinople with the Bulgarians as a military advisor. He held a close relationship with Enver Pasha and played an active role in the reformation of the army. Inonu began climbing the ranks during World War I, becoming lieutenant colonel on the 29th of November 1914, and then being appointed as the first branch manager of the General Headquarters on the 2nd of December. He was appointed Chief of Staff of the 2nd Army on the 9th of October 1915, and was promoted to the rank of colonel on the 14th of December 1915. He married Amine Mevib Hanım on the 13th of April 1917, 3 weeks before he left for the front to return home only after the conclusion of the Armistice of Mudros on the 30th of October 1918, of which she later bore his 3 sons and 1 daughter. He began working with Mustafa Kemal Ataturk Pasha as a corps commander on the Caucasian Front. Inonu was appointed to the 4th Corps Command on the 12th of January 1917, upon the recommendation of Ataturk. He was recalled to Constantinople after a while and returned to take part as a corps commander of the 7th Army. On the 1st of May, he was appointed to command 20th Corps on the Palestine Front, and then 3rd Corps on the 20th of June. He once again came into contact with Ataturk when he assumed command of the 7th Army. Inonu's forces received the brunt of Edmund Allenby's attack on Beersheba that ended the stalemate on the Sinai Front. He was wounded in the Battle of Megiddo and was sent back to Constantinople, where he held various administrative positions in the War Ministry during the armistice period. After the military occupation of Constantinople on the 16th of March 1920, Inonu decided to escape to Anatolia to join the Ankara government. He and his chief of staff, Major Safet Arakan, escaped Maltepe in the evening of the 19th of March and arrived in Ankara on the 9th of April. He joined the Grand National Assembly (GNA), which was opened on the 23rd of April 1920, as a deputy of Edirne. Like many others in the Turkish national movement, he was sentenced to death in absentia by the Ottoman government on the 6th of June 1920. In May 1920, he was appointed Chief of the General Staff. The next year, he was appointed commander of the Western Front of the Army of the GNA, a position in which he remained during the Turkish War of Independence. He was promoted to the rank of Merliva to that extent, Pasha, after winning the First and Second Battle of Inonu. When the 1934 surname law was adopted, Ataturk bestowed İsmet Pasha with the surname Inonu, where the battles took place. Inonu was replaced by Mustafa Fevzi Pasha Kakmak, who was also the Prime Minister and Minister of Defense at the time, as the Chief of Staff after the Turkish forces lost major battles against the advancing Greek army in July 1921, as a result of which the cities of Afyonkarahisar, Kütahya and Eskişehir were temporarily lost. During the war, Inonu's infant son İzzet died before his victory in Sakarya, and this news was only delivered to him in the spring of 1922. His wife, Amine Mevib, hid the news and the severity of his son's sickness due to the intensity of the war. He participated as a staff officer with the rank brigadier general in the later battles, including Dumlupinar. After the War of Independence was won, Inonu was appointed as the chief negotiator of the Turkish delegation, both for the Armistice of Mudanya and for the Treaty of Lausanne. The Lausanne Conference convened in late 1922 to settle the terms of a new treaty that would take the place of the Treaty of Sèvres. Inonu became famous for his stubborn resolve in determining the position of Ankara as the legitimate, sovereign government of Turkey. After delivering his position, İsmet turned off his hearing aid during the speeches of British Foreign Secretary Lord Curzon. When Curzon had finished, Inonu reiterated his position as if Curzon had never said a word. İsmet Inonu served as the Prime Minister of Turkey throughout Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's presidency, stepping down as Prime Minister for 3 months during Fethi Okyr's premiership and in the last year of Atatürk's presidency when he was replaced by Celal Bayar. He therefore helped to execute most of Atatürk's reformist programs. It was his suggestion to make Ankara the capital of Turkey, which was approved by the parliament. Inonu was also an important factor in the proclamation of the Republic and the abolition of the Caliphate and Evkaf ministry. He resigned from the premiership for health reasons on the 22nd of November 1924 for Fethi Okyr, but since Okyr lost a vote of confidence from parliament due to the Sheikh Said rebellion, Inonu returned to the prime ministry. Inonu immediately banned all opposition parties including the Progressive Republican Party and the press. Independence tribunals were re-established to prosecute the Kurdish rebels. In 1926, it allegedly came out that former members of the KUP attempted to assassinate Atatürk in the Izmir plot, which resulted in the remaining KUP leaders being executed. Inonu retired his military command in 1927. While dealing with the Sheikh Said revolt, Inonu proclaimed a Turkish nationalist policy and encouraged the Turkification of the non-Turkish population. Following the suppression of the Sheikh Said rebellion, he presided over the Reform Council for the East, which prepared the report for reform in the East, which recommended impede the establishment of a Kurdish elite, forbid non-Turkish languages, and create regional administrative units called Inspectorates General, which were to be governed by martial law. He stated the following in regards to the Kurds: "We're frankly nationalists, and nationalism is our only factor of cohesion. Before the Turkish majority, other elements had no kind of influence. At any price, we must Turkify the inhabitants of our land, and we will annihilate those who oppose." Following this report, 3 inspectorates general were established in the Kurdish areas, which comprise several provinces. Under Inonu's regime, the Zeylan massacre of thousands of Kurdish civilians was perpetrated by the Turkish land forces in the Zeylan Valley of Van province on 12 and 13 July 1930, during the Ararat Rebellion. Nation building was codified into law when a new settlement regime was enacted in 1934, resettling Albanians, Abkhazians, Circassians, and Kurds in new areas in order to create a homogeneous Turkish state. Inonu was responsible for most of the reformist legislation promulgated during Turkey's one-party period. The Hat Law and the closure of dervish lodges were enacted in 1925. In 1928, the Turkish alphabet switched to being written with Latin characters, and in 1934, titles such as Effendi, Bey, and Pasha were abolished, and certain articles of religious clothing were banned, though Inonu was and still is popularly known as İsmet Pasha. 1934 was also the year that the surname law was adopted, with Mustafa Kemal Atatürk bestowing İsmet with the surname Inonu, the location where İsmet won the battles against the Greek army in 1921. He was also a proponent of replacing foreign loanwords with pure Turkish words. Inonu managed the economy with heavy-handed government intervention, especially during the Great Depression, by implementing an economic plan inspired by the 5-year plan of the Soviet Union. In doing so, he took much private property under government control. Due to his efforts, to this day, more than 70% of land in Turkey is still owned by the state. Desiring a more liberal economic system, Atatürk dissolved the government of Inonu in 1937 and appointed Celal Bayar, the founder of the first Turkish commercial bank, Türkiye İş Bankası, as prime minister, thus beginning a decades-long rivalry between Bayar and Inonu. After the death of Atatürk on the 10th of November 1938, Inonu was viewed as the most appropriate candidate to succeed him and was unanimously elected the second president of the Republic of Turkey and leader of the Republican People's Party (CHP). He attempted to build himself a cult of personality by receiving the official title of Milli Şef, i.e., National Chief. One of his first actions was to annex in 1939 the Hatay state, which declared independence from French Syria. Inonu also wished to move on from one-party rule by taking incremental steps to multi-party politics. He hoped to accomplish this by establishing the independent group as a force of opposition in the parliament, but they fell short of expectations under wartime conditions. Inonu dismissed Bayar's government because of differences between the two on economic policy in 1939. Inonu was an avowed statist, while Bayar wished for a more liberal economy. Turkey's early industrialization accelerated under Inonu, but the onset of World War II disrupted economic growth. Much reform in education was accomplished during Inonu's presidency through the efforts of Hasan Ali Yücel, who was Minister of Education throughout Inonu's governments. 1940 saw the establishment of the village institutes, in which well-performing students from the country were selected to train as teachers and return to their hometown to run community development programs. World War II broke out in the first year of his presidency, and both the Allies and the Axis pressured Inonu to bring Turkey into the war on their side. The Germans sent Franz von Papen to Ankara in April 1939, while the British sent Hugh Knatchbull Hugeson and the French René Masili. On the 23rd of April 1939, Turkish Foreign Minister Şükrü Sarakoğlu told Knatchbull Hugeson of his nation's fears of Italian claims to the Mediterranean as Mare Nostrum and German control of the Balkans, and suggested an Anglo-Soviet-Turkish alliance as the best way of countering the Axis. In May 1939, during the visit of Maxime Weygand to Turkey, Inonu told the French ambassador René Masili that he believed that the best way of stopping Germany was an alliance of Turkey, the Soviet Union, France and Britain. That if such an alliance came into being, the Turks would allow Soviet ground and air forces onto their soil, and that he wanted a major program of French military aid to modernize the Turkish armed forces. The signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact on the 23rd of August 1939 drew Turkey away from the Allies. The Turks always believed that it was essential to have the Soviet Union as an ally to counter Germany, and thus the signing of the German-Soviet Pact undercut completely the assumptions behind Turkish security policy. With the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, Inonu chose to be neutral in World War II, as taking on Germany and the Soviet Union at the same time would be too much for Turkey, though he signed a tripartite treaty of alliance with Britain and France on the 19th of October 1939, obligating Turkey's entry into the war if fighting spread to the Mediterranean. I stop at this point today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world's incredible stories. Soon we will publish Part 2. Thank you for watching.